The Lift & Co. Cannabis Expo returns to the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, November 18th to the 21st. Discover and learn about all things cannabis. Get your tickets at liftexpo.ca. Must be 19 plus to enter and attend.
Was that Sanjay Gupta CNN special, which was really kind of the spark plug. Obviously, Charlotte was a huge, and the CNN story gets mentioned so many times because it really shed a light on just pure evidence that there is true medicinal benefits from someone who's having 300 seizures a day in hospice to taking CBD oil to having those seizures limited to.
Welcome to the Miracle Plant Podcast, the show that inspires, promotes, and gives you a daily dose of inspiration from the people who have used cannabis to change their lives in extraordinary ways. Here's your host, Justin Benton.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Miracle Plant Show, where we talk about this miracle plant with so many names, so misunderstood, and how it's helping people in extraordinary ways. We're recording live here on Clubhouse, 10 a.m. Pacific, every Saturday. And today we want to talk about what we're grateful for. It's the 4th of July weekend, and we get to hang out with friends and family and just experience this wonderful holiday where we get together and have fun. The world is opening up, and people are just kind of getting back to normal and hanging out with each other. And I just felt so grateful this morning. That was the topic that I wanted to start the show with. And again, obviously for me, I'm so grateful that in our search to find an answer, a solution for our son's severe autism diagnosis, we came across this plant and we did everything we possibly could, but we kept pushing further, hoping by praying that we could find something that would actually help clear his brain fog of a severe autism diagnosis. And in fact, that's why we started the Miracle Plant Show and all the .orgs that we have, is to just educate people because there's so much confusion about this plant. And prayers were answered, so we're here to pay it forward through education, through seeds, teaching people how to grow hemp in their backyard, through products and access to the same products that we made that helped our son get his solution. So that's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to have the Dan's here with us, our producer of the show. My mom's back as well, Janet Benton Gaillard. And we also have LaTara here who's listening in and helping us and answering questions on the show today. And we're going to talk about what we're grateful for with this miracle plan and just in general, because there's so much that we all could be grateful for today. So who wants to kick it off? What are you grateful for?
I'm going to follow up, Justin. Just one of the things you said, we talked about your son and the severe diagnosis and the severe way he had to live his life when he wasn't able to talk anymore or relate to people, and was just very happy and unhappy and lost. And I'm just grateful for him, actually, on some level, for having gone through that, because it was through him that we learned how effective the CBDA was. And so I think about sometimes that his life path apparently included this contracting autism, and then gave us that opportunity to actually find out that the raw whole hemp plant CBDA works, and then realize it applies to many issues across the spectrum of problems people have for health. So I just sometimes think we point that out enough, that it was him that inspired this and really was the start of everything.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's hard to even go back to remember how hard it was, how bad off he was, and how sometimes there seemed like such little hope, because at that time the community that we were bumping up against was pretty much like it was a coping thing. It was something that you just were going to deal with. And fortunately, I was raised holistically by you and understood the power of the plant and understood to question things. And so I wasn't going to just take someone's word that we should use him as a gerbil or an experiment with pills and things like that. None of that made sense to me. But what did make sense was obviously when you flew out and we got our own diagnosis and we got our own food allergy tests and our own blood work and our own understanding of his baselines with pesticides and with heavy metals and everything that his body no longer could detoxify on its own. That was the autoimmune, the inflammation. And through all of your practice and knowing how to use herbs and food as medicine to help get him at least back to moderate, where we could reteach him, and you were there teaching him how to reread and math and the rote skills and eye contact and all those kinds of things, we were making progress. And your belief system is, and which I love, is that children actually pick their parents. And knowing that I am his only dad, that I knew that I needed to keep pushing, and that's what I was going to do. And it's if you stay focused on what you want, not what's wrong. Again, this is about being grateful, and I focused on what I wanted, because we were playing t-ball, and in fact yesterday we went and played catch for the first time in baseball, which we hadn't done since he was before his diagnosis, and staying focused and clear. And I remember our doctor out here in Ventura said something along the lines of just trying to reactivate the brain. And he even said, like, rubbing a cell phone over the brain to activate sensors, because his son was also severely autistic. And that kind of triggered my brain pattern, looking for where are other things that would make. And then when I came across the research about CBD and helping children with seizures and epilepsy, that's when it clicked for me. I was like, that is just a match. That's the pattern I'm looking for. And that's what led us to CBD. And then it led us to William Courtney. And then it led us to understanding juicing and CBDA and raw, holistic, whole plant, organic cannabis and hemp. Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some dark days, and we get to pay it forward, and we get to talk to people. You talk with people on free consultations every week, families dealing with all kinds of issues, and we get to enlighten them with our story and just share what worked for us. And there is no silver bullet. There's no magic, but it takes hard work. It takes, perseverance. It's easy to drive through McDonald's, but it's hard to make juice every morning and to buy organic fruits and vegetables and all those kinds of things. But I think I've said on a previous show, is it's easy to be a crappy parent. It's really hard to be a great parent. And being a great parent means that you make sacrifices and you do things that are in your children's best interest. And I think if you come from that, you will find the solutions that you're looking for. And it's been so amazing that we've been able to work with our clients face to face and see their lives transform and see their families' lives transform. And it's not just by eating some CBD oil. It's also by noticing and following those clues, those cues, that when you take some fresh organic plant oil and it helps you with pain or whatever it is that you're dealing with, then it also opens up your eyes to what other things could I do for myself? Maybe I should drink that extra glass of water. Maybe I should go for that 20-minute walk. Maybe I should have a salad instead of a burger. And you start making better choices, realizing that there's an actual cause and effect relationship. So again, so much for us to be grateful for. And yeah, any other grateful shares, or anyone wants to?
Yeah, I would just like to know that you seriously just made me cry. Again, like I said, I am grateful for the science. Medicinal cannabis is amazing. Just being able to be knowledgeable about the plant itself. For me, I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for my daughter. I'm grateful for all of you on this platform, everybody that's in this room. My daughter was diagnosed at the age of 2. And I didn't get the experience that you guys got. And just to hear you talk about the different approaches with the medications, it made me think back to when Zaria was young and she was on different medications. She was on Resperdal. And I remember that medicine made her nose bleed. It made her gain weight. It gave her all these different side effects. And I was always thinking to myself that there has to be a different way. Fast forward to 2007 when she was 5 years old and she started 7 seizures. Zaria had her first seizure on the school bus, actually on her way home from school. And I remember just panicking, me and the school bus driver calling 911 and me calling her doctor. I was in Chicago at the time. And he had already said, if you call 911, they're going to take her to the nearest hospital. I was in the suburbs. He said, they're not going to bring her to me. He was like, I need you to be strong and you need to bring her to me. And I ended up leaving before the ambulance could even get there. And I drove so fast all the way to the University of Chicago. I was actually living in Sauk Village, Illinois. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Chicago, but it's big and there's a lot of suburbs. And I'm driving and crying and praying, looking at my daughter literally seizing. he told me to bring him there because that's where her neurologist was. That's where all the specialists was. That's where I took her. But anyway, Justin, you telling your story about your son, and Janet, you talking about your grandson, made me think about all of those years and all of the things that my daughter went to. And now being at age 18, like literally this morning, she woke up after using CBD for a few years. And now she came into my room and she said, "Mommy, morning, mommy." And she was so happy, and her eyes were bright and lit up. And she's just a completely different girl. And she's had such a better quality of life since she's been using CBD. And I'm really grateful for my 101 CBD family, because if I didn't have that, she would still be that same old Zaria. And I'm just grateful for her. She was my inspiration to go to school for cannabis. She's my inspiration to spread the word about how CBD is saving our children's lives. As a mom with a child with autism and epilepsy, and then also as a person with multiple sclerosis, every day I'm talking to people about CBD and spreading awareness about the CBD and how we have this plant that's here, but it's gotten such a bad rep that people don't even know that this could literally save them and their families' lives. That's why I'm here on this platform. That's why every day I'm reading myself, researching on my own. And that is why I'm going back to school for public health and education. And I'm just really grateful for that, because I swear, Justin, everything that you said made me think about being a parent is hard. Being a great parent is even harder. And it is easier to go to McDonald's and go through the drive-thru, because I'm going to tell you, this child, she loves nuggets and French fries. I know, I'm like, nope, we're going to go home. We're going to have some salad. We're going to have some fruit. Just having this circle of people around me just continues to inspire me to keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm so very grateful for all of you. And I mean, like, it made me tear up, but it also made me think about the advancements in science and the advancements in medicine, and how so many doctors, there are a lot of doctors getting on board with medicinal cannabis. There are a lot of people seeing that this does truly help heal our body. It doesn't just put a Band-Aid on the things that we're going through. I mean, it's really, truly a miracle. And so I can go on, but I'm going to give somebody else a chance to talk. But I just want to thank you for sharing that, because it really made me think, how good she's doing now, how she has such a better quality of life. And I appreciate you guys. Autism used to be like 30 years ago, people didn't even hear the word autism. Now you hear autism so much. You always hear that word. And I think I meet at least 2 people within a week who has a child or a family member with autism. So I'm going to keep doing what I need to do as a brand ambassador and just as a cannabis advocate and the person who likes to help people. That's why I'm here. Thanks so much.
Love it.
Thank you, LaTara. No, I love that idea too of being like the best parent, or adjusting to what your ideas of parenting are to the child you have. And so some children are very easy to raise without many complications. And so the real challenge comes in when you have a child with very serious issues. And especially you talk about the autism. I always mention that when I started working in the field as a psychologist, autism is 1 in 10,000 children. And now it's in between 1 in 20, 1 in 30, 1 in 40, or whatever study that you read. But obviously a massive increase. And there's just not a lot of real successful solutions. In fact, many people I came across, and Justin had that same experience in the field, they just see it as something to make the kids be able to behave enough to go to class or learn this or learn that. But they don't think in terms of really removing significantly the symptoms of autism. And that's why, to me, one of our major things as 101 CBD is also give parents that hope that you don't have to just accept, oh, I need to do these medications, I need to do this, I need to do ABA, and just get my kid through the day. And so I always think about my grandson too as kind of this shining star. Yes, there is hope when you get discouraged and it takes a while to see results, to keep that hope. And I know I was really triggered working with him one time, one of the behavior interventionists that they always send or whatever when the kids are young. And so my grandson was very athletic. And so he was doing some running or doing something. And the person said, oh, he's going to be great in Special Olympics. And I just turned to her and I said, we have such different visions of his future. because my goal as soon as I started working with him was to have him totally in regular schools and doing great and talking again and being above average again in academics by the time he was in first grade. And that's when I realized too, as a parent, we have to take our own route, and we have to, and that's why I'm so grateful that we did that. And just was a blessing too that Justin thought of the CBD, because I'm very holistic, and so all my diet changes and I worked with him 4 hours a day and the BI. We got him into what stage I call like a robot boy, that he would be amenable and he would do these things you asked him to do, and with free enforcers and his schedule and everything. But he still did not have the quality of life. He still was lost and easily overwhelmed. And so to me, truly the miracle was that then we found the CBDA, and that it just made such drastic changes so quickly. And he was actually in regular school with above average scores academically and psychologically by kindergarten. So I was even a year ahead of time. And so I'm always emphasizing to parents, have that hope, set your goals. Don't be afraid to set your goals high. And so I think that's one of the big benefits our company has put out there is hope.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, and with that, I was reading. It was actually an interview with Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it was interesting that he had some challenge with one of his children. I think, his youngest, and the gist of the interview was that the expectations that parents set on their children have real merit, have real consequence. And I make sure that you're clearing your mind of any limitations that you might have, even if your child's not on the spectrum, but certainly if they are dealing with it with a severe ailment, is to make sure that you're resetting your brain and your expectations. And really the sky is the limit, because you chose to have a child and to raise the child and to raise them to be healthy and happy and independent and live the greatest life they possibly can, to give them the tools to be resourceful, and just make sure that you're not getting in the way of your child's future because of some patterns that you may have. I was on a previous room before I came in here with Sykes, who's an NLP practitioner, and he's a master trainer. And he had Joe Soto on his show. Joe, if those are me, he's an incredible NLP and digital marketing guy. And his thoughts were about raising 9 children, and how it's success again is not what car you drive, but it's that you get to spend time with family, how you get control of your time, which is why we're talking about this over the 4th of July weekend, and that you get to raise your children and they are healthy and well-adjusted adults, and that continues that tradition for their children as well. So I would just also mention that make sure that even if you set your expectations as high as you possibly can is for someone, or have no expectations, just health and happiness, that sometimes you need to reset them. Because I know that was definitely a key for us, was not to accept any limitations. And you'd be amazed what not having any limitations will do for yourself and for your family. Definitely good conversation. Dan, you got anything grateful to share, brother?
I was a little choked up after LaTara was speaking, so I'm glad you gave me a minute to compose myself. These stories that we hear on the Miracle Plant podcast are so inspiring. But sometimes we lose sight of the big picture, I think, because we hear these are individual stories, and that's the whole point of the show, is individual stories cobbled together shows a bigger picture. But sometimes we get caught up in man, it's not happening fast enough. This should be happening. We should be happening so much. I think today's a good day to reflect on just how far we've come. And when we look back at the Sanjay Gupta special with Charlotte, and you say, man, those parents that had to travel to different states just to get their medicine for their child. I mean, that we've come a long way. That's not that long ago. That was the case where you couldn't even give your child the medicine that they needed. In a lot of ways, what you're doing and what, everyone's spreading the message. We've all contributed to this growth, and it's getting better. We should take a minute to reflect on how far we've come, how far the plant's come. And Janet was talking about the research, and all this stuff is growing. It's exponential. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we're making the progress that we're making. I know it's not as fast as everybody would like. If you look back, things have changed so quickly over the last, say, 10 years. And they're just going to change so much faster to help families like yours. So that's what I'm grateful for right now.
I love it. I appreciate it. And we are here on Clubhouse, 10 a.m. Pacific every Saturday. And we see some people out there in the audience. Feel free to raise your hand and ask some questions. We'll do some Q&A here at the end as well. But And I love that point, Dan, is we have come a long way. And 2013 was that Sanjay Gupta CNN special that was really with Charlotte, which was really kind of the spark plug. Obviously, Charlotte was a huge, and the CNN article gets, or story on TV gets mentioned so many times because it really shed a light on just pure evidence that there is true medicinal benefits from someone who's having 300 seizures a day in hospice to taking CBD oil, to having those seizures limited to one of them. And that really was the impetus that drove home the point in all of these other places. Colorado, where you are, in 2012 as well, when they started seeing these stories come out in Washington and California. And we have certainly come a long way, and there is so much to be grateful for. And that is one of the secrets of gratefulness, is to be grateful for what you have.
This is the sound cannabis companies hear when they try to place an ad on Facebook, Twitter, or Google. The tech overlords' arbitrary discrimination against our industry is unfair, but until they change their restraint of trade policies, we need an alternative way to share our message with our customers. Cannabis podcasts are one of the last advertising platforms not controlled by tech monopolies. And for as low as $9.99 a week, cannabis companies have the freedom to play their uncensored commercials to customers around the world. Don't let tech bosses dictate how you run your business. Go to PodCONX.com. That's PodCONX.com. And for just $9.99 per week, you can go from this to this.
My prayers are answered, and we're paying it forward by having these podcasts, by educating, by having free consultations, by having access to free products, to having access to free seeds. We're doing everything we can to get out there, to get this message out there. And thank God that we have Clubhouse and we have podcasts. Really are the vehicles for us right now. And I just saw yesterday, I read in an article that Apple is allowing cannabis businesses to be on their app, even ahead of Google. And we have come so far with this plant. But as we all know, there's so much further to go, not just with access to it. And there's still states where parents don't have access to these types of products. They do have access to CBD oil. And if they can get a whole plant product like ours, or on that level of whole plant, then at least they do have access to something. And that's great. There are some states out there like South Dakota that don't even want access to that. But at the end of the day, we have come so far, and I am so grateful for that. But in coming this distance, there is still so much confusion about this plant, and that's going to take some time. And that's why we're doing this, and that's why we go to CanMed, which Raphael Mechoulam was out here in 2019 telling the world about a whole plant raw CBDA. And then this year coming up in September, Dr. Ethan Russo is going to be here, and he's a pioneer in cannabis research. So that's going to be great to see him. And we just have to keep telling people these stories. And as we've said many times before, all CBD isn't created equal. All cannabis products aren't created equal. And just make sure that you're using your intuition when you're selecting a cannabis product for yourself. And it's the whole plant. It's the miracle plant. It's everything that goes on, not just one molecule. CBD is great, but it's the plant, the CBDA, all the other 100 cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, CBC. That's the beauty of this plant. It's the flavonoids like canaflavin A. It's the terpenes, the beta-carotene. It's even the chlorophyll. It's the amino acids, the omega-3s and 6. This plant is the perfect superfood. You can live off this plant. You can be sheltered by this plant. It cleans up the soil and the air. You can even run cars on this plant and charge your iPhone with this plant. There's going to be some great technologies that's coming out. It's actually 8 times more powerful than a lithium battery, what we're going to be making out of hemp. It's an amazing time to be alive. We have come so far. There's a long ways to go, but that's why we're doing this show, and certainly grateful for that.
Now, let me jump into, as I always love to do. And again, too, I'm really grateful for the science that led us here. Because as we know, there's many people say, oh, it's ashwagandha, it's turmeric, or whatever, different herbs that come and go in fashion and style. But there's really nothing like the hemp plant. It's literally the only plant that our body has receptors for, the old endocannabinoid system. And I believe humans have had it forever, eating it and eating animals that ate it. And so I used it for medicine. So it's very unique to have a plant that our body literally not only has receptors for, but makes a form in our own bodies. The endocannabinoid are made by the body. And so I'm very excited with the science over the years that in the beginning, people knew cannabis had some power, but they weren't quite sure what it was. And then pretty soon they realized it was THC, which is very psychoactive. And then it took a while before they decided recognize the CBD, which is the heated or decarboxylated cannabinoid in the plant. And it's only been the last few years that they finally recognized the CBDA. And as Justin mentioned, we always talk about CanMed from 2 years ago, where Dr. Raphael Meshulam, and if you don't know him, please research him. He is the person researching for 65 years in Israel. He actually discovered CBDA, CBD, THC, the endocannabinoid receptors, the whole thing. And he's been doing international research with other universities for 60 years. And then when he came to CanMed 2 years ago to say CBDA, or the acidic version, it's actually the form the plant makes it before you do anything to it, was 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than CBD or THC. And to me, that's what really opened up the world in terms of our holistic approach, match the science. And that really have not seen that very often. Almost always when I look at my holistic approach, which I've been using for decades, I don't see the science coming with it. The science tends to go to a single molecule or a copy of a molecule and toward pharmaceuticals. And so to me, it was just this huge serendipity that Dr. Meshulam comes and says it's CBDA, and that the holistic approach we'd been using actually was then verified by science. And if you look in PubMed now, you can find all kinds of articles on the use of CBDA and CBD. And I will say when I'm working with autism or children in general, anybody under 25, I do recommend the CBDA and not really the THC so much. THC actually can interfere with brain development, and our brains keep developing for quite some time. Men age 27, women age 25. And so I always point that out with children, especially that already have neurological conditions like seizures or autism or ADHD or those sorts of things, to focus on the CBDA. So anyway, I'm super grateful for just that coming together of my son, his wife, and myself, and just each of our special talents we brought to it to come up with this product and be able to share it with the world. And I know we talk about, I'm also super grateful through my consultations that are just free. You can sign up on the website. I now have been talking to a person in Tasmania, a person in Italy, a person in Romania. So the word is spreading. And so I'm just super grateful for people like LaTara and people who have used our product and had good results, that they're sharing it so people can realize there's hope and something that can make a difference in the problems they have.
Absolutely. I mean, as you can tell, there's plenty for us to be grateful for. And like I said, we're here on Clubhouse 10 a.m. every Saturday. If you want to come in or have a question, if you're listening to this podcast, then you can just make sure you come out to Clubhouse. Usually we're here at 10 a.m. on Pacific time on Saturdays on Clubhouse. And if you do want to try the product for free, you can go to freechillcbd.com, and we'll actually send you a free tincture of the same oil that we use to heal my son. And all that we ask is that you cover the shipping and that you give the product a fair shake. And by that, I mean you do at least half a dropper to a full dropper under your tongue for at least 5 minutes, at least twice a day, for at least a week. And then let us know how it goes for you. And the stories we get to hear, if you get to check out our testimonials or our reviews, whether it's on our YouTube channel or whether it's on our website, you'll be blown away. And that's literally why I called Dan last year during when the world stopped spinning. And I said, we got to get these stories out here. Let's do a podcast. Let's call it Miracle Plant. And let's have people on here and share these stories. And I'm so grateful that we've had this platform, that people are listening, that it's making a difference, and that we're really making change. And there's bills in Congress right now that are set to pass that are going to continue to accelerate what this plant's access is going to be for people. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hands. Otherwise, any final comments before we wrap up?
I just had something quick to say. I had ran this by Janet, but I'm not sure if you know about this case, Justin. I'm not sure where she's located, but there's a young lady, a young girl. She's 10 years old named Luna, and she's really fighting for her life. She has a rare form of cancer. It kind of went viral when The Rock, he posted something regarding her on his social media, which then her family and herself, she woke up and she had all of these followers on Instagram. But she has a rare form of cancer. And I really wanted to see how we can get her some CBD. I tried to message her on Instagram, but she didn't respond. Her family may be thinking, oh, this is some person trying to scam some stuff or sell some stuff or something. But I can send you more information once we get off of the podcast. But I would just like to share that there's always somebody fighting. There's, like I said, there's always some type of disease that children and adults and the older community are fighting on an everyday basis. But I would like for us to try to get her a sample. She will probably need a higher dosage because she is, like, her blood cell count, everything is really low and she's really fighting for her life. I just wanted to give you that information and let people know about that. But I'll get all the specifics so that we can try to get her a sample and see if they can help.
Yeah, and that's obviously our mission, is to heal the world. And we've sent out hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of free products around the world. And it was really cancer that opened my eyes to the power of this plant. And we had our German friend who was in her 70s and said she'd rather die than do radiation and chemo again. And she just took a strong version of our CBDA. And after a few months of taking it, she no longer had cancer. And of course, she was doing the other things and playing tennis and exercising and eating right. And she was a strong German woman. And when I saw that this plant could do that much for people with cancer, that was really when I stopped what I was doing. I had other businesses. I had other things I was doing with my time and my life. And I decided that was the moment that I knew that I needed to put all my energy and everything that I'd learned and my communication skills and my background and my expertise to healing the world and educating people about this plant, because there's so much confusion. And like I said, I don't know if I was talking on this podcast or a previous one. There's a mom who I connected with on Clubhouse, and her son's going through a real tough time with brain cancer. And she put her foot down. She said, no more. I'm not going to do this to my son anymore. This doesn't feel right. I'm not going to put him through this, and it's hurting him. And we see those kinds of stories, and we've sent some free products and some really strong stuff and just encouraging and showing the stories that we've heard. So we'd love to help with Luna. And part of it is just, you got to make that connection and get people to try it. It's one thing to send someone a product, but if they don't use it, it's not going to help. And that's why there's the free consultation. If you're on Clubhouse and you click on Janet's name and go to her profile link, on Instagram, you can book a free consultation if you want more in depth. And she helped heal her husband's cancer in the 70s with herbs and the foods that you ate. And at the end of the day, what this plant can do, and we know there's science, proven science. Go Google it if you want. Whole plant cannabis and shrinking tumors. We see it all the time. And this should be sung from the mountaintops, but it's not right now, because in our country, we live in a model that's based on publicly traded stocks. And it doesn't make financial sense for the whole world to be planting hemp in their backyard and taking these products and using them themselves for free, essentially. They can't make money on that. And so they've come out with isolated versions, Marinol and Epidiolex and all these things to try and mimic the plant and make a profit on it. In fact, Epidiolex is a isolated CBD product that they charge children and their parents $32,000 a year to take a single isolate CBD product to treat seizures and epilepsy, which is only about 39% effective, versus you could get some free hemp seeds from us. I'll teach you how to grow them in your backyard, and you could juice it with your celery and your carrots in the morning and do it essentially for free, just with some water and sunlight. And that there's no money in that. And that's the issue. And so that's why we've got a long road, and I'm committed to the fight. There's so many wonderful people in this space, because so many of us, our lives have been changed forever because of this plant. And so we've partnered with so many wonderful, beautiful souls all over the country and all over the world. And I really look forward to it. And again, I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm so grateful for this plant. I'm grateful I get to spend time with my family this weekend in beautiful 72 degrees. I'm sorry, Ventura, California, but that's why we live here, because the weather's beautiful here year round. And just With that, at the end of every podcast, we end it by unmuting our mics and sending out the energy through our vocal cords of heal the world, because that is our mission, is that someone out there is looking for a solution. They're looking for hope. They're looking for anything, a glimmer of hope. And we found something that was the answer to our prayers, and we know it can help other people. And we're just here to help people have access to this information so they can live their lives the way they want to, or have their children live their lives completely and full. So on the count of 3, unmute your mics and say heal the world, because that's what our mission is at themiracleplant.org. And that is www.themiracleplant.org. And it's also www.101cbd.org. So on the count of 3, let's say heal the world, folks. 1, 2, 3.
Heal the world!
Thanks for coming by the Miracle Plant Show. We'll see you next week, Saturday, 10 a.m. at Clubhouse. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you real soon. Take care.